that all the necessary technology is there now in some form. Maybe it's not as polished as it could be, but it's not as though the industry has to go out and invent something to actualize the final step of absolutely autonomous all-the-time vehicles. To get from here to there is going to take a little polishing, I think, but the nuts and bolts.
Polishing is kind of what's happened over the last 110 years, though, right? As cars have added on, you know, we don't do this anymore to start it, we don't do this. My kids have no idea what a crank window would do, they wouldn't know how to go, right? All these things kind of, we still don't know how many speeds belong in a transmission, right?
Lots.
Yeah, so it keeps evolving. So we're not all of a sudden going to be in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years and stop evolving. Cars are going to get smarter and technology is going to get better, and then we can keep putting really cool gadgets here on the showroom floor that you can buy now, right? And keep getting better and better.
You can't have things 80% accurate. They need to virtually be near 100%, or we're going to have serious injuries, deaths. There's also the education factor. You need to educate the consumer as we go through this process on how to use the features and what elements of the features that they need to be paying attention to and maybe not fully rely on. So everyone wants to beat each other to the technology and to the gadgets, and consumers are responsive. I think they're interested in it. The question is, there's an affordability question. There's how much will a consumer pay for some of these technologies. So all of that is being played out now, and I think we'll see how it takes over the next several months and years.
But I think more than anything, getting to the very high levels of automation or autonomous driving, levels 4 and 5 that Andy talked about, there's still a long way to go in terms of technology development. So sensors and sensor fusion has to come a long way. Control algorithms to drive the car. And also there's a huge amount of testing needed to actually validate and verify these systems. You think about the sensor technology information. That's when the car is bringing in information to tell it about where it is, perception about what's happening with the car in front, those sorts of things. LiDAR and other sensing technologies today just aren't at a point where you can do that at normal driving speeds. And then taking that information and making decisions about where you want to go with the vehicle, that's a challenge too. I mean, 90% of the decisions you make are deterministic, so they're rule-following type decisions that you make driving a car. It's the other 5% that's the hard stuff, right? So all bounces in front of the road, in front of the car, and then I have to make a decision: is there a child following that, or a learned experience around what I need to do? So the artificial intelligence part of the algorithms needs to come a long, long way if we are going to see these higher levels of automation. Absolutely.
I was amazed at CES and video was showing off. They described it, I think, accurately as a supercomputer for cars. Wrote this down. It's capable of performing 24 trillion operations per second, which sounds like that would do it.
Well, it was if you looked at the release, it was such an interesting technology. It needs to be cooled with liquid cooling.
Yeah.
So we're talking about cost parameters that right now are probably unrealistic for most consumers. But the technology will continue to develop. The LiDAR and the radar technology, the sensor technology, and the programming technology will continue. I think artificial intelligence and machine learning was one of the major themes at CES this year.
But if you say, okay, and Andy's chart there, the SAE 6 level, 0 to 5, that last one, which is no brain engaged, right, is very interesting because you really need to have 100% reliable systems that can drive on their own, which what that does is it changes the nature of the vehicle. You don't need a pedal box, you don't need an instrument panel, you don't need steering. So the entire vehicle changes. We have totally autonomous vehicles right now, monorail systems that go between the Disney World sites. I think that those types of systems, and Jen mentioned it, we're going to get to that full autonomy once artificial intelligence and learning systems are fully engaged. And I believe we're in the 2050 timeframe. So now you back down that time. So between now and 2050, we've got a mixed vehicles, we've got vehicles driving with no technology or no automated technology, and we're going to have autonomous or semi-autonomous vehicles. So we're going to be talking about this for the rest of my life, in other words.
But I think it's all the situations out there where you look at GM on the campus in Warren, they'll have automated vehicles right there. You look at some of our Veteran Affairs facilities as well. They've instituted autonomous driving there. The efficiency in terms of patients getting to doctor's appointments has increased, so utilization as a cost benefit.
So it's sort of low speed.
It's low speed.
You're kind of seeing two paths evolve. One is real products, because we can't wait for perfection. We need to fill the showroom here every year with something new, and it needs to work all the time. Customers paying for it. They're expecting the feature to work as good as other features. So that's a path that's going to be a little more measured, a little more conservative, and we've got to make sure that it's reliable. The other path, there's a little more of these demonstration fleets, like our tech center fleet we announced. We'll have some cars driving around. Lets us learn. You can take some more. You can reach a little bit further because you're gonna bound the problem a little more simply. Maybe it's low speed. Maybe you geofence it. Do other things to make sure that it's done safely, and you can learn and kind of progress that path and participate a little bit in the hype, if you will. But the real path is going to be a little bit more step by step.
I think that the one that interests me is that just before we go fully autonomous, you're sitting in your vehicle, eating a donut and drinking a cup of coffee, and the system says, "No, you're now in charge again."
That might not be a very satisfying feature.
No.
So that's an example.
There will be a point of
something maybe you can do, but are you ready to do it?
Correct.
Today we do a lot of testing, whether it's a crash test or we do a collision avoidance test. You run it at this speed, and then the sensor needs to pick it. You tell the driver. But now we're talking about having cars drive around and see if anything wrong happens. So that's the question of, there's lots and lots and lots of miles, because drivers, we talk about drivers getting a lot of crashes. Drivers are actually pretty good. Crashes are rare. So it's going to be a lot of miles where a car drives around and say, let's see if you drive as good as a human. That has not been figured out.
This is where you...
How perfect does this have to be? From an engineering standpoint, a lot of us would say it has to be absolutely perfect. We can tolerate zero failures. Consumers are a little more accepting of technology with a very small number of quirks. I mean, I heard people talking when they first got the Ford Sync system that it's buggy and things happen, and I'm always going in for an upgrade to the software. They live with that. So somewhere in between is probably the perfect answer, and you're right, in this litigious situation in this country, there's a lot of legal aspects and cans of worms that definitely will be opened up in the not too distant future.